Thank you very much. You know, it's so funny. I play all those notes and I somehow get through all those things. And the hardest part of that song for me is that very last. Oh, fuck. It's like every time I hit just that one. Nick, you made it so far. And that one note gets you every time. It's like being all epic about it. Every damn time. All right, I can play one more for you. Oh my gosh. UK clinic date. And I feel like it's just been going like this the whole time. So once again, thank you guys so much for coming out to a guitar clinic on a Thursday night. Give yourselves a round of applause. Because back where I'm from, the exotic island of Canada, this isn't really a thing. So this is really cool to get to come here and do this. Especially with a really good friend of mine, Mark Holcomb, from the band Tesseract. Periphery, sorry. So we're here on behalf of D'Addario. I'm sure you can tell from the subtle banner behind me. Hey guys, can you do me a favor and commit? Commit. I still haven't figured out what that is yet, but we'll get there, right, Adam? So yeah, I'm here on behalf of D'Addario and NYXL specifically. So I'm here for about 45 minutes. Mark's going to be doing about 45 minutes. So let's open the floor up for questions. I have no idea when I'll be back, seeing as I've been here twice in 3 months. I'm sure my luck has run out. So if anybody has a question for me, please ask the question. First person to ask a question gets this disgusting, sweaty guitar pick. Now the hands start coming up, of course. I saw your hand. You first, sir. How did I promote and advertise myself at the beginning? Very poorly. Very poorly. So I'm 31. You're supposed to go, oh my God, really? I'm 31 years old. And 1 second. And I have 4, soon to be 5 albums out. And I self-release everything. Actually, as of last week, I finally was like, okay, I'll get a manager. I just finally, after 11 years, I was like, I just signed the paper last Tuesday. So I'm like, okay, I just got it. It's starting to make a little bit of sense why. But in the beginning, it was all pretty much me and my laptop, self-releasing stuff and trying to use social media. Social media was it's such a dirty word for me in the beginning because I'm kind of sweaty. I'm kind of old school in a lot of ways. I use a Les Paul style guitar, as you guys can tell. I plug straight into an amp. Look at a little bit of sweetener on top of it tonight. I tend to not like sound replace drums. I like to do things. I like to play in dirty clubs. I like to do that old school kind of thing. That's how you learn and grow. So social media was like, what the hell is this? Because when I was 20, YouTube was really exploding. It was like, this was 11 years ago. It was really starting to take off. And I had a lot of friends like, you should be putting your videos up on YouTube. What the hell are you doing? I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I refuse to do that. It's whoring yourself out. I mean, what an idiot, because it's like the only freaking way to do things now. So I kind of rebelled against that for a very long time and just kind of did the traditional, I'll book shows and I'll go and play for the janitor and the sound guy, which is what I did many times as an instrumental guitar player from Canada, like I said, where there's literally no market for this at all. And then I started to kind of wisen up a little bit, and I got a YouTube channel, and I got a Facebook page, and all this stuff. And by the time I was about ready to put my first record out, I had done enough, just like I'll put videos of myself up playing guitar, and people like watching people play guitar for whatever reason. It's kind of perverted in a way, like, oh, what's his sweep picking? What's his hand doing? What's the neck joint look like? It's like, guys, come on, show some decency here. And then by the time I had the first album out, I was 24. And a bit of a fan base. But even then, I learned one of the most important lessons of my life at the tender age of 24. Nobody cares about your music. Nobody gives a shit about your music. I put the first album out and nobody bought it. Because I didn't really present it in the right way. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have anyone saying, maybe you should do this or that or that or that. I put everything up for free, and I just gave it away. I'm like, just take it, and take it. Then I did it again. What's the definition of insanity? Like, you do the same thing and expect different results? Well, I did that many times. But I kept going, and I made another record, and then that didn't do well, and made another record. But along the way, I started to meet a few people, just in the industry. You're around people that are doing the same thing. You want to be around people that, for the most part, unless it's like some horrible job and you just don't want to be around your colleagues at all, like most jobs, actually. All jobs, actually. And I made certain things, certain weird decisions, certain risks. I remember I got a credit card, when I was making the second record. I was paying for it, technically. And I maxed that credit card out to make a record, but then I got another credit card with a different bank so I could pay off that credit card. I don't recommend that. And when I was making that album, I met two of the guys in Periphery, because I had gone to a studio in Maryland. I heard the second Periphery album, and I was like, that's some really good production. I want to work with that engineer. So, I got the credit card, and I maxed it out, and I went down and worked with this engineer. And the last day of tracking, this is all chance, of course, I was working on a song called Sand Monster, this acoustic song, and Spencer and Matt were at the studio because they were looking at a place to do something for like a Sumerian, some kind of tribute record. And Spencer and I, we really hit it off, and he wanted me to do some stuff with him for this other band he had going on. But that didn't go anywhere, so I got a phone call a few months later. This is all going somewhere, I swear. And even if it isn't, who cares? It's kind of fun just to talk to you guys. Because no one listens to me back home. It's just the same old shit every time. Nick, shut up. He called me and asked me if I wanted to play solo on a Periphery song. Did you guys ever hear the Clear EP? Yeah, so I played a solo on that EP. And after that, so the whole point now is things are starting to snowball. And all of this happened not because of promoting myself. It just came because I like that thing. I'm going to risk a bunch of shit, and I'm going to do that thing. That's where a lot of this starts to happen, starts to build. Okay, fast forward a few months. I'm at the NAMM show, 2012 or 2013. It's my first or second NAMM show, I can't remember. And I'm sitting in the lobby of the Hilton Hotel. And these young lads walk up to me. They all were dressed the same. They had backwards hats on and hoodies with no sleeves on them. I was like, man, these kids are really young to be at the NAMM show. They can't even drink. And all four at the same time, they walk up to me and they go, whoosh, and they whip out a business card that had like a P on it with a bunch of looked like angel wings. And like, hey, we're in a band called Polyphia. We really like what you did on this Periphery song. Do you want to play on our album? And I was like, who the heck? Like, who? Polyphia? Am I saying that right? Polyphia? Polyphia. So I finally got it. And that song, Tim sent me a song. It was that one with... the Champagne solo. I played that on there. And that video, because of how ridiculous it was, I mean, he was right. I mean, I flew down to Texas and did the video with him, and it got like 5 million views or something. So that opened me up to another whole kind of just whole scene. I was 25 or 26, and they were like 19, so a lot of these younger kids would never have known of me. And then around that time, I realized, oh shit, there's one other guy in Canada doing what I'm doing, and he literally lives 20 minutes away from me, a guy named Aaron Marshall. We kind of grew up in the same town, and it was pretty funny. So we started working a lot together. We'd come over to each other's houses, and we'd talk about harmony and chord progressions. And if you listen to a lot of the stuff on, what was that album he put out before the last one? Shape of Color. Yeah, like I helped him come up with a bunch of chords and stuff for that. So he's like, do you want to play on this album? And then that kind of got my name a bit more. Then I played on a Jason Richardson record. Basically, I just knew a lot of people. Oh, and then I became really good buddies with, you guys know Plenty and David Maxim and all these guys. We all started working together, and we had like a big group chat. We'd always talk and stuff. And then it just like snowballed from there, right? And then I met more people. So really, it was like, instead of this, like, first album comes out, whoa, it was more like, and that's kind of still where I am. It's just, it's just this kind of, I'm still going here, guys. I got long arms. And that's the way I always wanted it, though, because I want to be doing this until I'm at least 32. No, I want to be doing this till I'm 60, 70 years old, right? And I don't want that explosion. I don't want that thing where you just become that guy that did that thing. I want, decades of people to discover me. And that's kind of what's happened because of the way I write music and this type of music I release and the people I work with. And I've been lucky enough, I write music that's for myself. I honestly don't care about you guys. I write enough music. I write music for myself, and musicians that also do that pick up on that. For example, I worked with a really great English musician from London. Do you guys know Gavin Harrison, the drummer? He plays in King Crimson. He played on the last album I did. And he was like, I sense that you're doing stuff that you do, like that you want to do. And he's like, I respect that. Let's do some stuff together. I just finished getting drums tracked by a German drummer, a guy named Benny Greb. He's playing on the next, he just did his stuff for the next record. It's the same thing. You just meet these people and they sense your creativity. I did some stuff with someone who I'm confused with a few times, Guthrie Govan. I worked with him a bunch of times. Did some stuff with Paul Gilbert, some stuff with Vi, like all these guys, just because I happen to, know people who know people, and just be a nice person. That has so much weight to it, guys. You don't even know. Be a nice person. Just say, hey man, how's it going? What's up? Let's hang, let's grab a beer. Don't be, dude, you check my band out on SoundCloud, yo, we're so sick. It's like, just be like a normal human being. And it goes a long way. And don't be in a rush to get success. Like, find your sound. I get so many kids, they're like 16, 17, 18, they're like, dude, I gotta get my record out. I feel like I'm losing, my life's flashing before my eyes. I'm just like, what? I was patient. I took years to release my first thing, and now that I have a sound, I think, every 2 years I put a new album out and just give it away for free and just kind of see what happens. I expect nothing, and if that's the case, anything I get is like a nice bonus. So don't necessarily fall into the traps of like promoting on paid platforms for. Don't just start doing Facebook ads and Instagram ads. Just like if people are going to listen to your stuff, they'll find it. That's kind of the cheap answer, but yeah, that's how it all happened. Good question. That's very deserving of a pick, so you will get this after. I need to use it still. All right. Anybody else have a question for me? Anybody else? Yeah, buddy. The most asked question in my entire life. I have an answer for you. That's been asked at every clinic, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, let me backtrack again. Back to the old days. I was 15 years old, and I started playing guitar when I was about 13, 14. And I had a Squire Bullet, and I had a fixed bridge, so nothing like this at all. And at the time, exactly. At the time, I was listening to bands that started to really use the bar a lot. I was a big Eddie Van Halen fan. I got into a lot of Yngwie stuff, and he'd use the bar, but not a crazy amount. But I started to get bar envy, whammy envy. And then I discovered the next tier of guitar playing, technically anyways. The guys on the Shrapnel label group from the 80s, your Greg Howe, your Richie Kotzen, your Vinnie Moore, your Tony McAlpine, and just the list. And then finally Jason Becker, who I would hear do all sorts of cool stuff. Like Mabel's Fatal Fable, the intro to that with all that crazy bar shit going on. I was like, I got to get a whammy bar. So I saved up money for a couple of years, and I bought a Carvin guitar. Pre-Kiesel, it was a Carvin guitar, ladies and gentlemen. And I learned to love that guitar. It had the bar, it had everything on it you can possibly imagine. It had too many specs on it, It had that horrible block inlay, in my opinion. And I came to really rely on the bar for everything. I'm that kind of guy. Like maybe some of you in here can agree. I'm amongst yourselves. I have an addictive personality, so that's why I was able to practice guitar for 10 hours a day for 15 years. Brutal, absolutely brutal. So when I get fixed on something, it's like it's over. So I would, you name it, burn. Like it could be. Everything. And I was playing with a really good friend of mine for a long time. We'd be always jamming together after school, before school, on the weekends. And one day he said to me, Nick, my friend, you sound terrible. And I thought, okay, that's not a good sign. So I sold the guitar. I got rid of it. I'm like, I need to get away from this whammy bar. It's ruining my life. And I bought a Telecaster, which, as you guys know, is the exact opposite. It's basically just a canoe paddle with pickups on it. Pretty much. So that kind of changed how I played guitar. I couldn't do the bar stuff anymore. I got more into using the volume knob now, using the pickup selector and the tone knob. I'll get rid of this delay. I can try and play something for you. So I got into doing a lot of stuff like this. I got to resolve that. That's better. So I just couldn't not let that resolve. I was like thinking, Nick, resolve that damn chord, man. So that's where all that stuff started to come from. And I got away from the bar, completely away from my picking changed. I started doing the hybrid picking thing. My tone changed, my hand, the amount of gain I was using changed. With the carving guitar and the hotter pickups, I could do more stuff. And just like, I remember learning, you guys know that song, like Altitudes or like Serena by Jason Becker, all these songs with all that just horrible nonsense. I learned all of that stuff, but on a Telecaster, it was like, actually, that sounds really shot and really bad. Anyways, so my playing started to change, which was a good thing. It kind of brought me back around just in time to play the Les Paul style guitars. A friend of mine had bought a Strat, and he's like, come check my new guitar. It was a really nice guitar. It was a Fender custom shop guitar. 2007, 11 years ago. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I remember he played a chord, a humble B minor chord, and I just saw him go like this. And I went, oh shit. So I heard that the pitch kind of go up and down a little bit. And then he's like, yeah, try it. So I did it too. So just a subtle kind of pitch shift to it. And then I noticed that if you cram your hand under it like an animal, you can do more of that. Or if you hit it and run the risk of, which I have many times, cutting your hand. Now, that doesn't answer your question of why do I do that instead of use the bar. Because I know myself, and I know what would happen if I put the bar back on, guys. It would just be a slippery slope. It'd be like a sober man smelling alcohol in someone's breath. They'd be like, oh my God, I need a beer. If I use the bar once, it's over. I'm not even joking. Because a friend of mine had the bar on his guitar like a few weeks ago, and I was over playing it, and I was like, oh shit. So yeah, that's why. And now it's kind of just become a way I play guitar. Like, I think, can I get to that note, getting my hand under there, shaking it? It's just become muscle memory. It's part of my technique. It's part of my tone. So yeah, that's why. All of those things and more, if you read my book now in stores. So yeah, it's pretty much just a matter of I had to get away from that awful bar. But if you have restraint, good for you. More power to you. Okay, one more question. I'm gonna play some guitar. Anybody? Question. Okay, there you go. You, sir, in the striped or the plaid shirt, yeah. Okay. So basically, why am I using an amp more so than a digital modeling unit kind of thing, or? Oh yeah. Right. Okay. So going back again. Oh my God. Being kind of like the traditionalist mindset I have starts, I guess, when I was about 14 years old, and I had a really cheap. I had a Fender Frontman R that had reverb. Oh, baby. It was, I remember I bought it. It was covered in, like, paint. Someone had tried to repaint it. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And that was my amp for the first 3 years of my guitar playing. I didn't have any money as a kid. My parents didn't really want to invest in guitar because I was notorious for dropping stuff. Like I played hockey, obviously. I played hockey for a long time. I skateboarded. I played baseball. I wanted to play drums at one point. I wanted to play piano at one point. All these things went to the wayside. But guitar stuck. So eventually, it was this decision: do you want to get a better guitar, or do you want to get a better amp? So I got a better guitar, and I just got used to playing through an amplifier, just getting used to the tone. I always find that when I play through a different amp, I'm not playing the guitar, I'm playing the amp. I'm listening how the amp is reacting, because you can't expect to do the same thing through every amp. You just can't. Every amp is built differently. There's different gain stages. The wiring's different. The tubes are different. I mean, even depending on when you're playing the amp, it's in its life cycle, it starts to kind of die a little bit. And I was always plugging straight into the amp. All my favorite players did that, so I was like, I'm going to try and do that too. And it was really hard. It still is really hard, because you have to sometimes fight, depending on the room you're in. I've had shows where I'm just, the whole night I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to be over, because it just sounds horrendous, but you do it anyways. So in this case, I'll show you what's going on. Mark has he uses an 805 distortion pedal, so that's just kind of hanging out on the floor there. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm basically just plugged straight into the front of the amp. This is without the effects. That's just the amp. That's the, can you believe that's the mid-gain sound? This is cranked. That's actually the mid-gain sound. I'm not even going to show you the high-gain sound because this is too much. Actually, I'll show you the high-gain sound because it's way too much. Enough said. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Mark's using that sound, so he's got it set for his... I can't even do that. I can't control that, especially with these pickups being... They're like natural 60-cycle hum pickups. So I keep it pretty simple. I plug straight into the amp, and I fiddle with the amp. If you come up here after and you want to see the settings, it's pretty funny. It's pretty perverse. I have literally no treble. I have no presence. The gain is at like a, what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock? 4 o'clock? Bass in the mid or straight up the middle, but no treble and no presence. It's just the way this room sounds, you know. So that's another thing too, is I got used to using my ear a lot. I trust my ear as much as possible, because that's ultimately, that's the truth, you know. And it just depends on where I am in the world. Sometimes I have to use this amp, sometimes I have to use that. Just, I don't have a huge budget. When I take my band out, it's like, what can I get? You know what I mean? I don't get to travel with a vintage Plexi on an airplane, because that would be insane. So it's pretty much this amp I'm using right now, which is the TC50. Just plug straight into it. But having a little bit of what I like to call the sweetener, or in this case, it's kind of confidence, because this is a really big room, and having that nice swirl of reverb, it's just gorgeous. That's a new pedal Mark brought as well. See, I'm leeching. I leech off everybody. Guys, I'm the ultimate leech. I'm using his Silver Lake Seymour Duncan pedal. It's just this big, nice swirling kind of thing. And then sometimes a delay pedal. But that's pretty much it. So I keep it simple. Plug straight into the amp. Try and get your hands to do all the work for you. Cool? All right. I'm going to play some more music. Sound cool? Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. So let's get serious for 1 second. We got 2 minutes. I just really want to thank you guys for coming here. Peach Guitars for having me back twice. And as much as I joke around, seriously, thank you to D'Addario for having me. I've been using D'Addario. Actually, they were my first ever, I forget the right term for this. Am I the endorser or are they the endorser? We've been working together since 2011. And it's been kind of the, here's a good word, the impetus for my career. So I can't say enough great things about them. Again, if you want to use what I'm using, these strings, I tune down to E flat. I use balanced tension, 10 gauge strings, NYXLs. Please try them out. You will love them. You'll never break one, and you'll never be changed back. So, guys, thank you once more. I'm Nick Johnston. Mark Holcomb will be right out. Thank you very much.
Guys, one more time, Nick Johnston. Surprisingly tame tonight, actually. An awesome ambassador for the brand. Next up, guys, the one and only Mark Holcomb.
How are we doing tonight, man? How's it going? You guys doing good? That was awesome. What do you guys think of Nick's playing? He's okay, right? I think he's learning the blues. I think he'll get there one day. No, that dude is an absolute trip to watch every night. And like he said, we're going on our 4th night in a row. This will be our 4th night doing this. And I knew he was a killer player before this started, but man, watching that dude every night, it's like half inspiring and then half like I want to stop playing guitar now. Like, no, it's been an absolute privilege to watch that guy play. Real quick, before I get into specifics, who here has seen or is aware of my band Periphery and has seen a Periphery show? Who's been to a concert? Okay, so that's a good number of you. Cool. I hope you liked it. Normally, if you've seen us live or if you've been to any show really, it's a very one-dimensional exchange. I like to say it's us playing songs at you, literally at your face, for 65 to 75 minutes typically. And I like to do things a little bit differently and treat this as a more two-dimensional exchange. And by that I mean I'll sit here and play as many songs as you guys want. I'll explain as many elements of my rig, of my guitar, of my pickups, what I'm using, but I want to get a chance to know you guys. I want to get a chance to hear any curiosities you have for me whatsoever. I know we're part of a scene. If you know our band, you know that we're very entrenched in the progressive metal community, and there tends to be a lot of, I guess, mystique around it these days. People are curious about it. People are curious about 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars, extended range, baritone, high-gain pickups, and everything in between. And I know this because I spend a lot of time on the internet. And the questions are nonstop. So I will not be offended if anybody yells out a question. Instead of feeling like you got to be polite, I know you guys are English, so your first inclination is to be polite and raise your hand. I'm not English. Just yell. Yell like a rude American. I take that back. No, hold on. I'm going to play you the whole album right now. No, I'm just kidding. So, for those of you who don't know, we're working on a new record called, I think it's called Periphery 4. Who here has heard the third record we did? Periphery 3, okay, cool. So this will be a follow-up to that. And we're in the process of writing. We took off all of 2019 to get this done. And I say that because last year we went a little too hard touring. We did a month here. I think we did about a week and a half in the UK and then 3 weeks in the rest of Europe. We did a month in the US directly before, and then before that we did a month in Australia, Asia, back to back to back. And yeah, my wife hated me at the end of it, you know. She's like, welcome home. I haven't seen you since 2016, you know. And that's kind of the impetus for us sort of taking this whole year off to focus on a new record, and we'll come back strong in 2019. But long answer to your question is we don't know. We just don't know. We're writing right now. We're taking off a lot of time to do so. So yeah, we'll see. It's a weird record. Yeah, there's lots of long songs. I think the shortest song that we ended up writing so far has been about 6 minutes and 45 seconds. And the longest on the top end being 15 minutes. So yeah, I want to call the album Periphery 4 compensating for something. I don't know if I'd probably get outvoted on that, to be honest. All right, well, before I get into some specifics, let me plug in. So what I have here in my hands is kind of a new prototype that PRS made for me. So if you guys have seen, you've been in here before, I assume, and have seen the other SE models that we've released. This is a brand new version of that. Right now it's only a limited run in the States. It's got an ebony top, but it's got all the exact same specs as the ones that you've seen. Now, you guys currently, I heard 2 days ago, as of 2 days ago, there is now a limited edition whale blue version, which this shop has and will have, and we're actually auctioning one off tonight and donating the proceeds to charity. So that's happening, and you guys be a part of that. It would mean a lot to me and a lot to the shop here. And yeah, so what I have here is pretty much that exact same guitar. I make no adjustments except for locking tuners. That's the only thing that I make different on my personal model, just because I move around a lot on stage. I bump into our singer, I bump into our other guitar players pretty frequently, actually. So it's kind of a necessity at this point. Sorry? These are not. These are the same knobs. Yeah, I don't even change that anymore. So yeah, it's pretty much the same exact guitar as you'd find here. And I'll show you what that sounds like in a second. Let me get my tone going. That's as pretty as it's going to get tonight. So this is the bread and butter of our sort of rhythm tone. And this is where this bridge pickup, the Seymour Duncan Omega, comes in handy. Check this out. And I'm really happy with the sound, if you can't tell. Check it out. So I was sound checking today. I was listening to this amp, and I was like, Jesus Christ. It sounds ignorant, you know? It just sounds angry. Here. the surface that may just sound like noise to those of you whose ears are not really acclimated to that kind of thing, or maybe you just don't care about that kind of tone. But for me, and I'll come at it from a different angle, I need something. I need this. I need the ability to sound like Cannibal Corpse, basically. You know? Just sorry about that. I know. I need that. I need the ability to just sound just pissed off. But I also need something else. I need there to be clarity under that much gain. And that's a lot to ask for in sort of a metal-centric bridge pickup. And I'm talking about this kind of stuff. Now, if you're familiar with my playing, I like to substitute those bigger, more dramatic chords for power chords. You won't see me playing a lot of this. You'll see me playing a lot of this. And that to me just sounds worlds more interesting than the average sort of drop tuning power chord sound you have. And that goes hand in hand with the design of the pickup. The pickup is supposed to be able to handle just a cartoonish amount of gain paired with that style of playing, which it's a very personal thing for me. I happen to quite like metal that has those kind of different dynamics to it. It's not just a dude holding a turkey leg, you know, with a club in his hand. It's a more sophisticated, he's wearing a suit. So that's what I like, a little bit of sophistication in with the sort of aggression. And that, to me, goes a long way, even a little bit of it. And that's the bridge pickup. That's what I'm using. It's a pretty simple setup. The Seymour Duncans, the PRS, and last but not least, they would execute me if I didn't mention them, but D'Addario. 11 to 56, I use NYXLs. And it's funny. So if you're at all familiar with our band, we have 3 guitar players. Myself, Misha, and Jake, we all play different brands. I play PRS. The other 2 play different brands. I will not name them. And I play Seymour Duncan. They play different brands that I won't name. But the one thing that unifies us is that we all play D'Addario, and we all have our entire lives, basically. I started guitar when I was 15, and I've never really tried a different string. And when they told us they were doing the NYXLs, for us, it just made a ton of sense. I use the 11 to 56 set. And the reason I use that set, trust me, I've studied this so many times over the years. I used to use very thick strings, but I found out that it would sort of neuter my tone. It would sound very sort of like there was like a wall, there was like a blanket over the speaker every time I'd use a set of strings that was too thick. Be careful with that, because you lose a lot of that sort of the twanginess and the brightness in your tone if you put on strings that are way too thick for your guitar and way too thick for, more importantly, your scale length. I see a lot of dudes playing, and girls, playing guitars that are like 25.5-inch scale, right? Nothing wrong with that. But when you put on strings that are too thick for a short scale, it starts to sound really dull. And it kind of loses life. The strings almost sound dead. It took me years of experimenting that 11 to 56 was kind of the right thing for me. This is the highest tuning that we use, by the way, in Periphery. This is drop C. This is the ceiling. This is as high as we go. That's our standard tuning. So to be able to accommodate just that low C, you're going to need a 56. That's just my opinion, but it's something I've been doing for 9 years professionally now. And one of the main reasons I use a 56 on the 6th string is so I can do this. This is really stupid. That. in about 2014, this became our sort of go-to bread and butter tuning in Periphery. There was a song that we wrote on Juggernaut called Graveless that uses, is it Graveless? Yeah, Graveless and Alpha and The Bad Thing. Those three songs had a tuning that we call drop A. And that's where you take this additional 6th string and tune it down all the way to A. So what that allows you to do is get this octave sound with a power chord shape. And it just sounds it sounds like a 7th string on record. When people hear that song, they say, oh, what kind of 7th strings did you use? We say, oh, it's a 6th string. We just tuned it down way too low. And that's what that sounds like. And to go that low, do not even think about using anything light. And 56 I found is like the perfect balance of that. So for those of you who are interested in writing in different tunings where you take that low string down, which I urge you to try, because it's a lot of fun and it unlocks a lot of creative ideas if you start to play with different tunings. Try out a 56 on that 6th string, as it's kind of the sweet spot for me, I found out over the years. Anyways, I'm going to shut up now. Enough talking. Do you guys want to hear a song? Yeah. Awesome. Why is my phone doing this right now? There we go. Thank you, guys. It's really hard to not move when you play this music, you know? People, I get questions sometimes, why do you move around like an idiot on stage like that? Even during clinics like this, where it's supposed to be, you know, somewhat intellectual. It's hard, man. It's hard. Anyways, yeah, that song is it's a fun one to play. One that was kind of written completely collaboratively by the band. You guys know our former bass player, Nolly? He's from, I think, 3 hours west of here in a place called Bath, near Bristol. Anyways, Nolly left our band. He's no longer with us. He's still alive. But yeah, I remember we were tracking Periphery 3. And we hear Nolly in the room next to us messing with this riff. And he played it exactly how it ended up on the record. You get the gist. I'm not really playing it correctly right now, but that's what he played in the other room. And we heard it, and we were like, "What is that?" And he was like, "I can't. I was going to try a British accent, but I'm not going to do it." He was just like, "Yeah, it's just something I'm working on. I don't know." And we were like, "Yep, let's do it. Come in here, let's do it." So we had him track that one riff, and we said to ourselves, "We got to write a whole song around this riff." And then the floodgates opened. It was like I think the song was written in a day. Because we were just vibing off of his riff. It was this crazy feeling. It's like this contagious creative energy. And I want to know something. How many of you guys play in bands here? Okay, good number of you. How many would consider themselves sort of bedroom producer or bedroom musicians who can do a whole song and a whole record by yourself? Cool. Yeah, don't be shy. I mean, if you can do that, that's awesome. I was that. I was that person pretty much my entire teenagehood and my entire 20s. I'm 30. I'm going to be 36 in October. And throughout all of my guitar playing sort of life, I was that guy. I didn't really like to work with other people, as weird as that was, for a couple reasons. One, I grew up just cripplingly shy. I was always that kid who, unless you had some sort of common ground with me, it was very hard to get me to come out of my shell, which is why music kind of saved my life in a respect. And then once I learned guitar, I felt like I could do anything. And I became sort of addicted to getting things done by myself. I was like, oh, I'm going to write this song. I'm going to play bass on it too. I'm going to program drums. Hell, I may even write lyrics, because that's just the way I was used to. I was very antisocial. And I didn't really like meeting people, as bad as that sounds. I didn't like sort of establishing a working relationship with strangers, for all intents and purposes. It wasn't until Periphery sort of got off the ground that I got out of my shell and I learned how valuable it is to just loosen up your armor sometimes. Doesn't matter. It does not matter how dedicated and how focused you are to your craft. Letting your guard down like that is ultimately going to be good for you if you trust the people around you, and most importantly, if you're inspired by them. And this is what I always say to people in up-and-coming bands. I ask them, are you inspired by your bandmates? Because if the answer is no, well, then you have a problem. Because this case in point, that song, Prayer Position, I trusted Nolly. I trusted the rest of my bandmates. And this is sort of the theme of our careers, is trust in one another and being open to critique, being open to feedback, constructive feedback, rather. Being open to that kind of thing, and that's kind of the prime example of sort of just letting them be your safety net. So I urge all of you guys who are sort of dedicated to doing it your own way, working with others opens up a completely new avenue of creativity. I remember before that record, I felt dry out of ideas. I didn't have any ideas for that record until I sat down with them. And then I saw that Misha was working on something, or I saw that Jake was working on a new song, and I was like, all right, I gotta do this too. I have to get on their level. And my life changed when I started being more proactive about meeting musicians. So if you're in a guitar store, like a crazy guitar store like this, that's just the size of Google or something, you know. I urge you, if you hear somebody playing something cool, be it on the drums or be it on the guitar, go up to talk to that person. That person could be a total dick. But they also couldn't be. They could also probably be a nice person and be willing to open up about what they're working on. And that's just a small example of being able to learn from somebody like that. It's a way of mind, really. So if you're willing to open yourself up, no matter how sort of closeted you can be, and that's us as artists, right? Like, we're artists. We're shy. We're awkward. We're introverted. We can be. I urge you to try your hardest to reverse that while still keeping the side of you that makes you at your best, that makes you you. Try to reverse it. That changed my life. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yeah. Yeah, so he's asking, for those of you who didn't hear, he's asking about the amount of gain that I use. And no, in fact, quite the opposite. Is I know that I'm using a lot of gain here, but the tones that we write on at home in the studio, I just go for something that sounds interesting to me and something that makes me want to play. You know, and I hate to say it, but a tone with that much gain on it, it's just fun. You know, it's fun. You don't got to use this hand at all. You can just go, and it sounds awesome. You know, so I just tend to go for the tone. I tend to go for the tone that makes me so pleased that I can't help but just try and fiddle with something new. I try to go for the most inspiring tone. Now in the studio, when you're tracking and you're committing your final guitar takes to your album, that's when you maybe want to experiment with rolling down the gain a little bit, especially if you have 3 guitar players in your band, which arguably is one too many. Take it from me. Can I get you in the pink shirt? You had a question earlier? That's a really good question. Yeah. I don't know if you guys heard it, but is there anything that I could go back and tell a younger version of myself as a writer, you're saying? Yeah, I would say compromise being the key word. Learn to compromise. It's taken me years to learn how to let go of my ideas. And there's 5 people in my band. All of us are very stubborn, and we're very sort of specific about what we think Periphery should be. And I think that's a good thing. I think all bands should have that. If you have one guy in the band that doesn't really care that much, get rid of him. Really. I'm not joking. If he's sort of amicable and he's agreeable, that's great. But if he really doesn't care, or she doesn't care, they don't really belong in the band. Periphery's deal is that we have 5 players who are the exact opposite. And it's taken me forever to learn that word, compromise, and what that entails. And it always leads to one thing that I was always pretty crappy at as a kid, and that's communication. That is like, all right, so for those of you who are in a band, who here has shown their like riff to somebody in a band, in their same band, and then they didn't like that part? You know? Yeah, it's a pretty bad feeling, right? It sucks. I remember just a couple weeks ago, I sent out an idea to the band. I emailed them this new idea I was working on. I was like, hey guys, check it out. I'm pretty stoked on it. And then like I wake up the next morning, no responses. And then I go to bed that night and I wake up the next morning, no responses. And that feeling never gets any easier. It really doesn't. But then it goes back to what I described initially. The first thing I mentioned was trust. You have to trust them because they're in your band for a reason. And if you don't trust them, they shouldn't be in your band. So it's sort of just relaxing a little bit and being like, okay, this is not my solo project, this is a band. Relinquish control a little bit and just sort of roll with that. I would tell younger me that, for sure. Yeah, I'll take one more question, then I'll move on. Yeah. When did I start playing power chords? 15? When I was 15 years old, and I'm 36 now, so it's 21 years old. That's depressing. Yeah, but I'll tell you something interesting, is when somebody told me what a drop tuning was, I went out and learned all the Rage Against the Machine songs. You know, I thought they were really... also saw that you could fret a power chord just by laying your finger flat. You know, most people play power chords like this in standard tuning, but I read in tablature that you could do that with one finger. So I was using my thumb a lot as a teenager, and my guitar teacher, he only gave me 3 or 4 lessons as a teenager. He told me, don't use your thumb. Stop. Because it leaves your hand in a sort of compromised posture. You normally, like if you see guys like Jeff Loomis or Nick Johnston back there, his fingers are pretty parallel to the fretboard most of the time. I had this habit of slanting them, and not only that, laying my thumb over, because for some reason that just felt comfortable to me. And then my teacher said, stop doing that. And then I went home and I saw a Guitar World magazine with a picture of Jimi Hendrix on the front. And he was playing Purple Haze with his thumb, fretting the root note. And I said, all right, I'm not going to listen to my teacher. And the rest was history, because I figured out that if you used your thumb to fret a power chord, like the bass of a power chord, you could use your remaining 4 fingers to fret whatever voicings you want. And this is where it gets really fun. You can make the chord major or minor, but not only that, you can add all sorts of different interesting, spicy voicings to it to make it what I call specific. So there's this. One finger, which anybody could do, or this. And I fell in love with that approach, and it stuck with me ever since. So, yeah. Did I answer your question correctly? Cool. Can I play another song for you guys? Awesome. I'm not going to play the whole song, by the way. Thank you. That's an 11-minute long song. And I played it one time, the whole thing. And I start to saw some older people who didn't care about me walk away, and I got bummed out on stage. I was like, I'm never going to play another 11-minute song at one of these again. Kids were falling asleep. Can I get to any more questions before I move on? Yeah. Yeah, so he's referring to the fact that sometimes, depending on what I'm playing, I change the sort of the shape of my right hand. And if you guys can't tell, I pick super, super, super hard, almost too hard, according to our sound guy. He tells me sometimes, he was like, why are you always sharp? Everything you play is sharp because you're picking so hard. And it's a funny story. I actually switched to .66 millimeter Tortex, which most people consider to be pretty thin for heavy metal, for the sole reason that I could play harder and not have that same effect on the strings, or have it to a much less degree. Yeah, so I pick super hard, and during the parts that sort of require a little bit of sort of percussiveness, that I guess the gent tone, let's call it, just for this exercise. Or if I play something a little bit more gated, I don't have a noise gate here, so I'm going to use my volume knob just to sort of simulate the effect. A riff like, I don't know, Icarus Lives or something. I use a fist when I pick because there's these little punches. Do you guys hear those little punches between the notes? So I'm not talking about, I'm talking about this. All that's doing is just sort of punching the strings dead with your left hand muting. And that is one of the reasons why 99% of all covers I've seen of Icarus Lives on YouTube are wrong. Nobody knows how to play Icarus Lives right. If you've covered it on the internet, I apologize right here and now to you, but you're playing it wrong. And the reason I explained this the other night is most people are playing it like this. Sorry. Which doesn't sound so good to me. But if you start to use both hands muting together, and this is just so vitally important to what we do and what Periphery does, is we value silence just as much as we do notes in a riff, because that's what makes the notes more powerful. If you have these gaps that are ultra tight and ultra quiet between the notes, those notes are going to sound super powerful. So the way you're supposed to play it is you're supposed to mute between every note and insert those little dead notes. So the correct way to play it is that. Try it out. Try it out sometimes. It's a challenge to do it under a lot of gain in your tone, but once you get the hang of it, it'll change the way you write rhythmically regarding metal. So that's why I pick like that. I open up my fingers a little bit more when I'm playing solos, when I'm playing cleans, or anything that don't involve that kind of dynamic musically. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah? Yeah. The clean section? Oh, yeah. So he's referring to this part in Omega, the song I just played, where we're using these kind of alien chords. And these chords, I remember the intent behind this section was to basically disorient and to confuse. And we don't really like to do that very often. I call it the Dillinger effect. You know, the Dillinger escape plan effect. Is all their songs are meant to make you feel uneasy, you know? And that's exactly what that part is meant to do. Because the rest of it's kind of straightforward. It's a heavy metal song, you know? But that part comes up and the drums don't sound like they're in 4 because Matt's doing fills nonstop. The chords are meant to sort of throw you for a loop. And this is what the first one. That's the spy chord. We call that one the spy chord because it sounds like it's from a spy movie. Next week on James Bond. Yeah, so the whole intent was just to kind of sound like a panic attack, you know? Just that really, like you're on a crowded, sweaty train, you know? That kind of feeling. But it's a funny story. None of us in the band know theory in your approach. And that section is a perfect example of that, where we put all of the onus on intent. Intent is a word that I use often in Periphery because with each section of a song, let's say you're writing a song, you want each section to have its own intent. Like, why is this verse like this? What is it supposed to do? This verse is a build-up towards the pre-chorus. And the pre-chorus, what's the intent of the pre-chorus? The pre-chorus is to further build anticipation towards the chorus. What's the intent of the chorus? Explosion. Liquid explosion. Now, it's meant to be a release, right? It's meant to be a release, and then a bridge. What's a bridge supposed to do? So these are all things that I ask myself about every section of one of our songs, and that's why we have sections like that. So, can I get to anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying how we organize vocal parts? Oh, you should ask Devin Townsend that. Because like I used to want to do that because I grew up sort of idolizing Devin Townsend and idolizing James Hetfield especially. And I would see James, you know, with the Explorer all down here, and he'd be playing Master of Puppets all downstrokes, and he'd be singing perfectly and just being a badass. And I saw that, and I was like, I want that. I want to be you. I want that. And so I would play Ride the Lightning in my bedroom. I would play Master of Puppets in my bedroom. And even just mouthing it to myself, it's like, it's hard. It's really, really tough. And I have this incredible amount of respect for people who can do it. Devin is probably the best at it. It's Devin Townsend. If you guys don't know him, check him out. But for us, I just roll down the volume when I got to do it. I roll down the volume or I pick a part that's really easy. In the band. And let's say that I have a backup vocal part on stage because I sing backup. Sometimes I do backup screams. And I'll straight up ask the rest of the guys, do you mind if I get a simpler part for this? Like, can I trade the lead with Jake or Misha while I have to sing? And that's typically how it works. And, you know, they're understanding of the situation, so they're never difficult about it, thank God. Can I get to, we're running low on time here, guys. I almost got to go. But I want to take at least one more question before I go. Did you have your hand up? No? Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Back in the back. Yeah, you. To try and get an income? Ooh. I'm still figuring that one out. I would say this. Don't expect anything. Nothing is due to you. Nothing is owed to you. And the sooner you understand that your chances of ascending in this business are just microscopic, the better equipped you are to deal with the reality of it and increase your likelihood of actually doing it. So it's this brutal sort of reality check that you give yourself that I urge younger musicians to sort of listen to is you're probably not going to do anything in the industry. Statistically, based on statistics, the percentage of musicians who actually quote unquote make it is so small, but I feel like the sooner you understand that, the more sort of hardened you are when bad stuff happens to you. You know, I see younger musicians sometimes be bummed out, be like, I drove 200 kilometers to go play for 12 people, and I only got paid $100. And they complain about it. But what they don't understand is that's what you have to do. That's the game. The game is being resilient, is not giving up the moment something bad happens to you, when your van breaks down, your amp blows, someone steals gear from you, that kind of stuff. It's about resilience and understanding the reality of the situation. So I feel like once we get that we're probably not going to be able to make it, that lights a fire under us. And that right there, that understanding, that's what propels you. That is what is eventually going to propel you to the top, understanding that. So I hope that helps. Anyways, I'm going to play one more song, but before I do, can we please give a round of applause to Peach Guitars and Diodario for having us all out? Let me tell you something. I grew up around a ton of stores, music stores, completely devoid of personality and warmth and care and knowledge and just a personal experience. And I walk in here today, and not only does it look like NASA, it's the people that work here are incredibly sweet, and they know their stuff. And I urge you not to take a place like this for granted. Don't do that, because I wish I could have grown up within an hour or 2 hours of a place like this, all right? Come back to this place, play their guitars, be the annoying people where, you know, those guys who just play guitar for 3 or 4 hours a day and they want to kick out and call the police. Be that guy. Be that guy. All right, guys, thank you so much. This song is called The Way the News Goes. Thank you all so much for having us.